is there any considerations if you're working with someone who might have performance issues or is emotionally low? What I've come to realize, and learning in the book actually, Kaylee, from Switch, is that what looks like a people problem is often a situation problem. That's one of the lines from Switch, How to Change When Change is Hard. What looks like a people problem is often a situation problem. And that's stuck with me since reading that book. And I think the beauty of that, and when we think about low performing people, is that when you are using this game in a one-to-one, the stories that come from behind the cards that are chosen will illuminate barriers or sticking points or problems or challenges that people are facing, which might be a reason for low performance. So if somebody in the team keeps picking out reactive or keeps picking out doubt or keeps picking out stuck, the story behind that will illuminate some of potentially insights into the barrier from a performance perspective. So that's obviously up to you as a leader to look for those and to look for those stories and to be listening for those stories. But certainly it can illuminate things that you might not normally be able to uncover or be able to listen to or hear through using the game. It's inadvertently it's a diagnostic tool, I guess, because they're diagnosing themselves or what might be blocking them or in the way. And the second part of that, for emotionally low, I don't necessarily know in the thousands of people I've used it with how many people are emotionally low going through these things, because we don't measure people's individual emotional pleasantness if they are feeling high pleasant emotions at the time or low pleasant ones. But what I can say from just research in general, there's a fellow called Dr. Mark Brackett, and this should be on everybody's reading list, hopefully, Permission to Feel, this book here. And in that book, he talks about the neuroscience of naming unpleasant emotions. And it turns out for the geeky neuroscience sort of wannabes like me, scientists like me, is that when we name unpleasant things and we talk about unpleasant emotions, it actually reduces the unpleasantness of the experience, just simply because it moves from our amygdala to our prefrontal cortex, and that allows us to regulate it in a different way. And so inadvertently, by playing this game, we are actually benefiting people who might be experiencing emotional distress or might be emotionally low. I don't talk about that, by the way, in workshops, and like the fact that we might be experiencing that. I talk about how it can help, but I don't specifically say that's going to be an outcome of it, because I try to keep the concepts I present to people as simple and easy to digest, and I don't want to scare people off. That might come in time as we build more trust. But simply by running this exercise, and especially using the white cards, which people don't want to do a lot, I'm always nudging the leader or the coach of the team to have this conversation, because I'm really aware of what's happening neurologically in our response to these conversations. So it's actually of benefit, even though it might seem difficult. And a company in Australia a couple of years ago, there's about 700 across Australia, and they decided not to use the white cards because she described their company as having a culture of neglect over 20 years. And so they didn't want to have this conversation in case of what it brought up. I didn't realize at the time the benefit of having this conversation. I wasn't able to express it to her, unfortunately. So they didn't use them, but in hindsight, it actually might have been a real healing moment for them to be able to name it, because Dan Siegel says you have to name it to tame it. I just wish I had that understanding 2 years ago to be able to share that, but certainly fight all your intuition and all your gut feeling in terms of not doing it if you do have it, because there is real power in naming them through this. Yeah.